Hello everyone, today we are looking at lessons found in the Jamf Teacher app. On the left-hand side of the screen you will see the teacher iPad, and then on the little screen there is the student iPad so that you can see how these lessons affect the students on their end. Back on the teacher's iPad, we're going to find Jamf Teacher. It's the maroon colored app. We're going to open that up. And then on the left-hand side we will see lessons. Before I jump into this, I'm going to kind of describe what lessons is essentially. So if I jump into one of the classrooms, our previous video was over ad hoc rules. So essentially the allowed websites, allowed apps, and restrictions and what those do. What lessons does is it combines all three of those into one action essentially. So while you're on this screen and we come up here to these like little rectangles here, if you click on that, that is the start lesson function. I already have a bunch of lessons created, so this is how that would essentially look. I would select one of these lessons that I've created and then apply it, just like I would a website restriction or an allowed apps restriction, essentially. So to back up, I'm going to leave this class. I'm going to go into lessons here. This is where you will first start or create your lesson within Jamf Teacher. You will have essentially no lessons here. So when we click on this create lesson, this is kind of like the rubric or the layout of your lesson. I will give this lesson a name. Let's call it test lesson. From here, you are allowed to add specific apps and certain links. So for example here, if I back out, go into Safari, and I grab this website because I want students to be locked into this website. And then I go back out into my Jamf Teacher. I can paste this URL, give it a little title. And then when I press enter, that is going to allow that website and also lock students so that they cannot get to any other website than the one I've listed here. You can click on add links and you can keep going down and adding more and more links here. The thing with this though is that it's very powerful. The thing that makes it powerful is that it locks them into those sites, but again, if you do not put the specific URL that the students are going to be like redirected to, you're going to run into blocked errors. So essentially if you just put clever.com or concord.instructure.com, you may run into issues because throughout the process of them getting to your specific assignment, or in Clever, if you're going to like IXL, those links are going to change. And that's what I'm calling a redirect link. So you have to be very specific on what sites you put in here if we're going through those LMSs essentially. Above, if we want to add more than just Safari as an app, we can click on this edit here. This is a list of all of the apps that you as a teacher have. Again, a lot of these apps and most of these apps students won't have access to, so they don't have access to the App Store or the Apple Store. I believe like FaceTime's in here. They won't have access to these already because we predetermine what apps they have access to already. So in here, I'll use the same example I did in my previous video. I'm going to add pages, and then I will add the Canvas student app. And when we were done with that, we can back out and then we'll see those have been added alongside Safari. There is a toggle here below the lesson links section that you can either toggle on or off. Essentially, if you toggle this off, they will be able to freely use Safari like normal. If you leave this on, and I believe it turns on by default, they will be locked into just the specific links that you put there. So again, if you're not very comfortable, if you think there might be a link that you're missing, I would recommend that you turn this toggle off just so that they won't get hit with block pages when you're not expecting them to. For the time being, I know it's just one website. I want them to use for research purposes, so I'm going to use this, keep this toggle on. These genres and allowed functionality down at the bottom, this is the restrictions part that it's pulling in from the ad hoc rules. Again, I recommend that we don't really mess with these. These genres and the functionality, they're kind of generic rule sets that are pulled from Apple's own descriptions. We already do all the filtering for social medias, for like shopping online. Our content filter will already handle all of this for us. And in addition, if we turn off certain things down here, like one, again, they don't have access to iMessage, so this won't matter. But if you turn off making screenshots and screen recordings, then that actually affects you as a teacher, because then you won't be able to use Apple Classroom and see their screens because Apple Classroom uses this on the back end. So again, I don't really recommend using anything in the allowed genres or the allowed functionality. I would purely look at the allowed apps and the lesson links for lessons. Once you have the appropriate website links and the apps you want them to have access to, you can come up here and you can click Save. And then you will see your lesson appear here. That is how you create a lesson. So now let's go back into our classes and let's push out a lesson to our students. So if you go back up to classes here, you'll see your roster of classes. Select the appropriate class. And then in the top right, we're going to go back to those like stacked rectangles there. If we click on that, now at the bottom, you should see your new lesson that you've created here. I believe we called ours test lesson. And then I will keep it at the maximum time frame here and click apply. So now what you should see is on the student's iPad, everything will disappear other than the apps that you've allowed. And if they open up Safari, if you've added specific URLs, they will appear under the favorites if they open up a new tab. And any other websites they had open before, they will no longer have access to anymore. So if they try to Google, if they try to go to coolmathgames.com, none of that's going to load. All those old sites are going to say they're restricted at the time. To remove this lesson or to relieve them from all of this control and restrictions, what we're going to do is on the teacher iPad, if you go up to the top right and click on the three dots, at the very bottom you can clear all limitations. Doing that will reset the iPad back to its original state, so there's all our apps again, and then if they go into Safari, they're able to load the other tabs they had open previously. The last piece, just to be safe, anytime we're in Jamf Teacher and we are done with the class, what we're going to do is we're going to click on Leave Class and then Clear Restrictions. Essentially, this is going to send another Clear Restrictions, but just in case the first one was not picked up by specific students or the class in whole, this is another command sent just to make sure that they are no longer locked down by your lesson. Just to recap, if we go back into lessons, I wanted to show that here underneath our test lesson, we can actually click on the three dots, and here you can edit your lesson, so that if you wanted to add another additional app, we can go back into allowed apps, add another, or if you want to remove or add a link, you can do that here, or if you want them to have free internet reign in terms of getting to other sites than what you have allowed here, you can toggle that as well. Just make sure we hit save in the top right if we make any changes. And additionally, with every single one of these lessons, you can share it with each other. So if we click on the share icon, you'll have all your typical iOS methods to share. So you can send this in an email. Teachers, you can airdrop it to each other. You can use any of these methods to essentially share it with each other.